Hey, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Let me start with something that might surprise you. Whether you realize it or not, you're already selling every single day. Research shows you spend 40% of your time persuading others. That's 24 minutes of every hour. Whether you're a physician, a manager, teacher, or even an entrepreneur, you're selling. When they surveyed 5,000 people asking what's the first word that comes to their mind when we say sales, the number one answer was pushy. 20 out of the top 25 words were negative. But here's the thing, that's not what sales is, not even close. Sales isn't manipulation, it's connection. And once you understand the science behind it, you realize you're better at this more than you think. The new reality. Information changed everything. Now, to understand why connection matters more than ever, we need to talk about what fundamentally changed the game. For thousands of years, sellers had more information than buyers. That's called information asymmetry. It's why we have buyer beware. Then about 10 years ago, boom, everything flipped. Now, buyers can research dealer costs before even buying a car, check Glassdoor before taking a job, look up symptoms before seeing a doctor. And now with ChatGPT, this is getting even more and more advanced. We moved from buyer beware to seller beware. This changes everything. Your advantage isn't having information anymore. Everyone has Google. Everybody is using ChatGPT today. Your advantage is curating information and finding hidden problems people don't even know they have. And that brings me to the first skill you absolutely need to master if you want to find those hidden problems. Attunement. See through their eyes. To move people, you must first understand them. This is attunement. Seeing the world through their eyes, not yours. Because if you can't see what they see, you'll never discover the problems that they don't even know exist. Let me show you what I mean with a quick exercise. With your index finger, draw a capital E on your forehead. Right now. You can do it. Did you draw it so you could read it or so I could read it? If you drew it in a way facing out so I could read it, you demonstrated attunement. That's what makes you persuasive. You were thinking from my perspective, not yours. But here's where things get a little bit interesting and a little scary at the same time. There's something that actively destroys your ability to do this, and you might be experiencing it right now without even knowing it. It's called the power paradox. The more powerful you feel, the worse your perspective taking becomes. People with power stop seeing things from others' viewpoints. That's how leaders fail. The moment you start thinking, I've got this figured out, your ability to attune to others drops like a stone. So, what do you do about it? Here's the counterintuitive solution. To increase your effectiveness, you actually need to decrease your feelings of power. Before tough decisions, I want you to think, they're really talented. Maybe we need them more than they need us. They're usually right. Maybe they're right about this as well. What happens? Suddenly, you're more open. You listen better. You become more effective. Now, I know that this might feel a bit weird, deliberately making yourself feeling a little bit less powerful. So let me give you a practical tool that makes this easier. It's called the empty chair technique. Next meeting, put an empty chair at the table and make sure that this represents your customer. Throughout the meeting, ask, would I say this with them being here? What would they think? I keep a tiny plastic chair on my desk as a writer. It keeps me focused on serving the reader, not just impressing myself with how clever I am. Here's something else about attunement that surprises most of the people. You think understanding someone's feeling would be the key to persuading them, right? Actually, no. Research shows that in negotiation and sales, understanding someone's thoughts and interests beats understanding their feelings. Your boss is frustrated? Don't just react to the frustration. Think. What's really going on here? Maybe he's worried about hitting the numbers. Maybe there's another personal problem he's having in his life. Maybe another project is more urgent. Use emotion as a clue. Then ask questions. It sounds like you might be under pressure from vendors. Is that right? That's attunement. Seeing their perspective, understanding their thoughts, reading their situation. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. Attunement helps you see their perspective, but perspective alone isn't enough. Because if you're seeing their world clearly but trying to manipulate them for your own gain, they'll smell it a mile away. You need something deeper. You need to know why you're doing this in the first place. Service, the secret to great selling. The best persuaders think of their work as service. You're helping people move to a better place. This isn't some feel-good concept. It literally changes how effectively you persuade. And there's neuroscience to back this up. There's a study from the States about a radiologist reading x-rays. One group got scans with patient photo attached. They spent more time on each scan, were more meticulous, and performed better. 6 months later, same radiologists, same scans, but without photos, they performed worse. They've gotten used to seeing the person, and now that person was gone. What changed? Nothing about their skill. Everything about their mindset has changed. When they saw the person, they cared more. They served better. So before every persuasive encounter, picture the actual person whose life you'll improve. Make it personal for yourself. Here's another example of how powerful this service mindset is. A hospital wanted staff to wash hands more. They tried 3 different things. Hand hygiene prevents you from catching diseases. That was a big sign. No effect. Then another group did the gel in, wash out. It was a little bit impactful, but not much. For the third group, they wrote, hand hygiene prevents patients from catching diseases. Massive effect. Same behavior, same result, different framing. Why did the third one work? It reminded them why they chose healthcare in the first place, to help people. It made it about service, not self-protection. So here's what I want you to do. Before any persuasive encounter, ask yourself 2 questions. If they do what I want, will they be better off? Will the world be slightly better off? If either answer is no, rethink what you're doing. Because here's the brutal truth. Even if you have perfect attunement and a genuine desire to serve, you can waste all that energy persuading the wrong person. I've seen it happen 100 times. Someone spends an hour delivering a brilliant pitch to someone who has 0 authority to say yes. So before we go any further, let me show you how to make sure you're talking to the right people. Find the real decision maker. Don't waste energy persuading the wrong person. Here's a technique that works every time. It's called the discussion map. In meetings, note who talks and who they talk to. Here's what you'll discover, and this might shock you a bit. The person who talks most is often not the most powerful. The person everyone talks to, that's power. I'll give you a specific example. I was in a meeting once with 7 people. One guy dominated the conversation, talked more than 40% of the time. I would have bet money he was running the show. But I was mapping the conversation. Every time someone spoke, I noticed they'd glance at this quiet woman in the corner. She spoke maybe twice in the entire hour, but when she did, the whole room shifted. That's your hidden influencer. Sometimes you'll find someone who barely speaks, but everyone keeps looking at them for approval. I call people who talk a lot but nobody listens to yakaholics, struggling for influence they don't have. Find the quiet person everyone defers to. That's who you need to convince. Everything else is theater. Now you've got attunement. You're approaching this as a service and you know who the real decision maker is. The next question is, what problem are you actually solving? You've heard this before. And this is where most people completely miss the mark. They think they're problem solvers, but that's not enough anymore. Let me explain why. You need clarity. Finding problems, not just solving them. For years, salespeople said, I'm a problem solver. That's great. It's just not enough anymore. Because here's what changed. If your customer knows their problem, they can Google the solution. They don't need you. And today, they can even ChatGPT it and they will get a full research set with it. What they really need today is when they don't know what their problem is. That's problem finding, and it's a completely different skill. Let me show you what I mean. Say I'm shopping for a vacuum cleaner. If my problem is I need a vacuum, I don't need your help. I don't need your service. I can go on Amazon, read reviews, done. But here's the question you should ask instead. What do I actually want? Not a vacuum. I need clean floors. So maybe my window screens are broken and letting dust in, for example. I don't need a vacuum. I need new screens. Maybe my carpet attracts dirt. I don't need a new carpet. I need a carpet that doesn't collect much dust. Maybe I have 3 kids and 2 dogs and I'm exhausted. I don't need a vacuum cleaner. I need a cleaning service. Instead of asking what vacuum do you want, ask, tell me about your house. What's going on with your floors? When do you notice they're dirty? You're finding the real problem, not just solving the surface one. Here's a technique that makes this easy. It's called the 5 whys. Act like a 4-year-old and keep asking why. Let me show you exactly how this works in real conversation customer. Let's say the customer is saying, I can't afford your consulting. Don't accept that. Ask, why? What's happening with the budget? We're cutting budgets. Again, why are you cutting budgets? One product line underperformed. Keep going. Why did that product line underperform? Our best leader left and the replacement was terrible. One more. Why was the replacement terrible? Honestly, our hiring practices aren't effective. Boom. 5th why. Now you've found the real problem. What if I could help you improve your hiring practices? Because if you fix that, you won't lose your best leaders, your product lines will perform, and you won't have to cut budgets. Now, you're solving their actual problem, not the surface one. You found what they didn't even know they were looking for. Once you found the real problem, you need to communicate it in a way that actually moves them. Which brings us to the art of the pitch. And I promise you, everything you think you know about pitching is probably wrong. The art of pitching. Most people think pitching means do your song and dance, get a yes immediately, seal the deal. That almost never happens. And thinking that's the goal will make you even more pushy and desperate. Here's the real purpose of a pitch: to begin a conversation and a collaboration, period. Not to close, not to open. There's fascinating research on Hollywood pitch meetings. They studied which pitches actually get movies made. The best pitches didn't wow people with polish. They invited the other person in. Interesting. Have you thought about doing it this way? The pitcher and the producer became collaborators, not judge and performer. That's what you're aiming for. So let me give you some specific pitch structures that work. First one is the question pitch, and it's devastatingly effective when used correctly. Presidential debate, Jimmy Carter versus Ronald Reagan. The economy is terrible. Inflation is crushing people. Reagan could have said, I'll fix the economy. I have a plan. Instead, he asked one question. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Brilliant. Questions force engagement. People had to think back, compare their current situation to 4 years ago, and they convinced themselves. Reagan didn't have to make the argument, they made it for him. Here's the rule. When facts are strongly on your side, questions are more persuasive than statements. But here's the warning, and pay attention to this because I've seen people blow themselves up with this technique. If facts aren't on your side, questions backfire spectacularly. In 2012, Mitt Romney tried the exact same question against Obama. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Said it once in a debate, never again. Why? Because people thought back to 2008, the financial crisis, the recession, and realized, actually, yeah, I am better off. The question destroyed his own argument. Let me give you another pitch structure that works every time. I call it the Pixar pitch because every Pixar movie has the same 6-sentence structure. Once upon a time, every day, one day, because of that, Until finally, here's how you use it. Let's say you're pitching a financial services app. Once upon a time, millions of people lacked access to banking. Every day, they used predatory check cashing services that charged them fees they couldn't afford. One day, we created an app that provided financial services on their phone. Because of that, more people got access to credit. Because of that, they could support their families better and start businesses. Until finally, financial services were available to everyone, not just the wealthy. It's clear, it's a story, it invites collaboration because they can see where you're going and they can contribute ideas. One more pitch type, and this one is advanced, it's called the one-word pitch. What word do you own? When I say search, you think Google. When I say Google, you think search. That's one-word equity. If you can distill everything you do in one word, you have ultimate clarity. And clarity is persuasive. Think about that. What's your one word? Now, here's the hard truth about all of this, about pitching, about persuasion in general. No matter how good you get, you're going to hear a no. A lot. Way more than you hear yes. I've met some of the best salespeople in the world, and they face rejection every single day. So let me tell you how they stay afloat in that ocean of rejection. Buoyancy. Staying afloat in rejection. I spent some time with a friend of mine. He sold perfume door to door in Brazil. He told me, Eli, every day I face an ocean of rejection. That's the truth for all persuaders. People say no way more than they say yes. So how do you keep going? How do you wake up the next morning and do it again and again? Here's what doesn't work. The typical motivational self-talk. You can do this, you got this, you're a champion. That might pump you up for 5 minutes, but it doesn't prepare you. Here's what works better, and this is actually backed by research. Instead of declaring, you can do this, ask yourself, can I do this? And if so, how? Then you have to answer yourself, yes, I can, because I've done this before. This is a good idea. I just need to make sure I don't get lost in the weeds talking about features instead of benefits. Last time, I didn't listen enough to their concerns. So this time, I'll focus on asking questions first. What are you doing here? You're rehearsing. You're preparing yourself for the no. You're strategizing. Questions force you to think through how you'll actually succeed, not just declare that you will. Now, here's the other thing you need to watch for. When you face rejection, and you will, pay attention to how you're explaining it to yourself. This is critical. There are 3 explanations that will destroy you if you let them take root. I call them the 3 Ps. Personal. It's all my fault. I'm not good enough. But is it though? Maybe they had no budget. Maybe they already committed to another solution 6 months ago. Maybe their boss vetoed it. It's probably not entirely personal. Second one is pervasive. This always happens to me. I always fail. Does it? Really? You've had successes before. Think about them. It's not always. That's your brain lying to you. And the third is permanent. This ruined everything. I'll never recover from this. And you've seen this a lot in this world. Will you though? Most rejections don't ruin everything. You'll pitch again tomorrow. That's how this works. Here's what I want you to do. Treat yourself like you treat a friend. If your friend came to you after rejection and said, I always fail. I'm terrible at this. You won't say, yeah, you're right. You do suck actually. You'd give them perspective. Give yourself the same perspective and compassion. Speaking of perspective, let me address something you're probably wondering about. Am I even the right personality type for this? Do I need to be an extrovert to be good at persuasion? The answer might surprise you. Who makes the best seller? Quick quiz. Who makes better salespeople? Extroverts or introverts? If you said extroverts, you're wrong. If you said introverts, you're also wrong. Here's what the research actually shows. They tracked a software company's sales force for 6 months and measured their performance. Very strong introverts, terrible. too shy, don't assert themselves, afraid to ask for the sale. Very strong extroverts, also terrible. They don't listen, too pushy, turn people off. The winners are ambiverts. People right in the middle of the spectrum. They know when to push and when to hold back, when to speak and when to shut up and listen. They're flexible. Here's the great news. Most of us are ambiverts. Most of us have the native personality to be effective at this. You don't need to transform yourself, but here's what you should do. If you're more on the introverted side, make small moves toward the center. On planes, instead of hoping nobody talks to you occasionally, initiate. Where are you headed? Just that. See what happens. If you're more on the extroverted side, talk less, listen more. Ask questions instead of making statements. You'll be shocked at how much more effective you will become. Now that we've covered who you need to be, let's talk about how to actually make your message stick. Because it doesn't matter how good your content is if people can't remember it or act on it. And that's where framing comes in. Framing, making your message stick. People are drowning in information. They're stimulus-rich today, but context-poor. They see 1,000 messages a day and remember almost none of them. Frames tell them what to focus on. They're the lens through which people see your message. Let me give you some specific frames that work. First one is the loss frame. Here's something psychologists know. We feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. Losing $100 feels worse than gaining $100. Losing $100 feels worse than gaining $100 feels good. So don't just tell people what they'll gain. Tell them what they lose if they don't act. Insurance isn't marketed on what you gain. It's about what you lose without it. Your house burns down, your family has nothing. That's loss framing. And it works because it taps into something primal. Second frame, the contrast frame. The most important question in persuasion isn't what's in it for me. It's compared to what. Here's the famous story. A blind man was begging on the street with a signal that said, "I am blind." Not getting many donations. Adman Russell Reeves walked by, added 4 words to the sign. It is springtime and. Full sign now reads, "It is springtime and I am blind." Donations pour in immediately. Why? The contrast. He can't see the spring flowers, the blue sky, the sun. I can. Now I understand what he's lost. Always give people a comparison point. Without it, they can't evaluate your offer. Third frame, and this one feels risky, but it's incredibly powerful. The blemish frame. You have something that's mostly great with one small flaw. Do you hide the flaw or reveal it? Standard researchers did a study. Hiking boots, long list of positive features, waterproof, durable, comfortable, great traction. One group saw just that list. Second group saw the same list plus one sentence. Unfortunately, they come in only 2 colors. Who bought more? The second group. Shocking, right? But it's significantly more. Why? The small negative triggered compared to what? In people's mind, they thought, only 2 colors compared to all these incredible features? That's nothing. This is a great deal. 2 rules for the blemish frame. First, it must be a genuinely small blemish. Don't reveal major flaws and expect this to work. Second, put the blemish after the positives. Build them up, then give the small negative. Last frame, the potential frame. And this one is fascinating. What's more persuasive? Talking about what you've accomplished or what you could accomplish? Study with NBA teams. They showed them 2 players. Rookie with no stats yet, but projected to average 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. 5-year veteran with actual stats, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Identical numbers. One projected, one proven. Who got offered more money? The rookie, every single time. Why? Because potential creates uncertainty. And people fill uncertainty with positive expectations. They imagine the rookie becoming a superstar with more points. So in job interviews, don't just talk about what you've done. Talk about your potential. Here's what I could do for your company. Here's where I could take this role in 2 years from now. Let them fill in the optimistic gaps. Framing is about what you say and how you say it. But here's something people completely overlook. When you say it can be just as important timing. And timing changes everything. Timing matters. We obsess over what to say and how to say it. But when you say it, most people never even think about it. Big mistake, because timing can be the difference between yes and no. First question, should you go first or last in a sequence of presentation or proposals? And it depends on the situation as well. Go first when you're not the default choice, you're the challenger. There are very few competitors, just 2 or 3. Your competitors are really strong. Why first? Because you set the frame, you define what excellent looks like. But go toward the end when you are the default. You're the safe choice. There are many competitors, 7, 10, 15 options. The selection criteria is not very clear. But now, why last? Recency bias. The last thing people see sticks in their memory. Next timing question, you have good news and bad news. Which first? 4 out of 5 people prefer bad news first. Why? Because people prefer rising sequences over declining sequences. They want to end on a higher note. Start with the bad news, end with good news. We're over budget on this project, but we finished 2 weeks earlier and the client is thrilled. One more timing consideration that changes the game. When during the day do you ask? People's default decision is usually no. It's easier, it's safer, it requires no change. But they're more likely to overcome that default early in the day and immediately after the breaks. Their mental energy is higher, their willpower is fuller. If you have a 5% chance of getting a yes at 4 p.m. on a Friday, you might have a 7% chance at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Still mostly rejection, but over time, those extra percentage points compound. Timing is one piece, but there's a bigger pattern about timing that most people miss entirely. It's about where you are in the overall journey, the beginning, the middle, or the end. And each phase requires completely different strategies. Beginning, middles, and ends. Beginnings, middles, and ends aren't just arbitrary divisions. They have distinct psychological effects. Let me show you how to use each one. Beginnings. Certain dates are temporal landmarks. They make us feel like we're opening a fresh page, starting a new chapter. Mondays are better than Thursdays for starting something new. The first of the month beats the 11th. The day after your birthday is stronger than 2 days before it. Why? Because these feel like new beginnings. Our brains love fresh starts. So if you're launching something, pick the right date. Don't start on a Wednesday in the middle of the month. Wait until Monday. Wait until the 1st. The psychology matters. Here's another beginning strategy that prevents disasters. It's called the pre-mortem. Before you start a project, gather your team and say, it's 1 year from now, we failed completely, spectacular failure. Why? Brainstorm everything that could go wrong. Budget overruns, key person quit, technology didn't work, client changed their mind, whatever. Then, don't do those things. Way better to make mistakes in your imagination than in your reality. Now, midpoints. They're dangerous because they have dual effects. They either drag us down or fire us up. Here's a fascinating sports statistics. Basketball teams trailing by 1 point at a halftime are more likely to win than teams ahead by 1 point. Why? Being slightly behind is motivating. It creates urgency without creating hopelessness. So when you hit a midpoint in your project, use it as an alarm clock, not a snooze button. Pretend you're slightly behind. It will energize you. Finally, endings. Here's something. How something ends is how people remember the whole thing. Endings energize people. You know when people run their first marathon? 29 years old, 39, 49, 59. They see the decade ending and think, it's now or never. So help people see the ending. Give short deadlines, not long ones. 3 weeks beats 2 months because the ending is visible. They can see the finish line. Endings also elevate experiences. People prefer rising sequences at the end. The last impression matters most. If you have to deliver criticism and praise, start with criticism and with praise. Then remember the praise. Sometimes the most important person you need to persuade isn't your customer, your boss, or your team. Sometimes, maybe most times, it's yourself. So let me give you some strategies for those moments when you're struggling to get yourself to take action. Motivating yourself. Sometimes the hardest person to persuade is yourself. You know you should make those calls, send those emails, follow up on those leads, go work out. Here's a trick that works. I call it just 5 more. You're exhausted, you've sent 20 emails, you're done. Your brain is telling you to stop. Tell yourself, just 5 more emails. That's it. 5. You know what happens? You will send 15, 20. Why does this work? You're not trying to change your mind. You're giving yourself a tiny off-ramp. But once you build momentum, you keep going. The hardest part is starting. This trick eliminates that barrier. Second strategy, interim goals. Don't just set huge distant goals that you can't even see from where you are now. Not finish the book by December. Not finish the book by December instead. Finish this chapter by next Tuesday. Not close 30 deals this quarter. Instead, make 20 cold calls this week. Make the goal visible. Make it reachable. Then string those wins together. Third, public commitment. This one makes people uncomfortable, but it's incredibly effective. Post on social media, this week I'm visiting 30 retailers to pitch our new product. Now you've promised the world. You've put your reputation on the line. You're way more likely to follow through. Why? Because backing out now means public failure. Nobody wants that. And the last strategy, take breaks. But not just any breaks. The most effective breaks are outside, moving and socializing and being with your family. Don't sit at your desk scrolling your phone for 10 minutes. That doesn't restore anything. Instead, 10-minute walk outside with someone you like, talking about something other than work, phone left behind. That restores mental energy. That boosts motivation. That gets you ready to go again. All right. We've covered a massive amount here. Attunement, service, decision makers, problem finding, pitching, buoyancy, personality, framing, timing, and self-motivation. Before I send you off to use all of this, let me pull back and give you 3 big picture lessons that tie everything together. 3 meta lessons. We've covered a lot, but here are the 3 big picture lessons that matter most. Context matters more than you think. Situations drive behavior more than personality does. The same person acts completely differently in different contexts, so pay attention to context, the room, the timing, the mood, the circumstances, and more importantly, shape it. You have more control over context than you realize. 2, give people autonomy. People do things when they have their own reasons, not your reasons. Don't just tell them what to do. Help them discover why they want to do it. The best persuasion feels like their idea, not yours. 3, do the right thing. When in doubt, take the high road. Most encounters aren't zero-sum. You don't win by making them lose. You both can win. Think of yourself as a collaborator building something together, not an adversary trying to extract something from them. This is your final assignment. Think about one persuasive encounter you have coming up. Could be tomorrow, could be next week. And ask yourself, whose perspective do I need to take? What do they care about? What's their 1%, the thing that really matters to them, even if they haven't said it? Am I serving them or just pushing my agenda? What question could I ask instead of making a statement? How can I help them come up with their own reasons to say yes? Because here's the truth that I want you to walk away with anyway. Persuasion isn't something that you do to someone. It's something you do with someone. It's not manipulation, it's connection. You're already a persuader. You do this every day with your kids, with your spouse, your colleagues, your clients. Now you just have better tools. Go out there, use those tools, but use them in service of something good. If they're better off after working with you and the world's a little bit better off, you're doing it right. Now get out there and make it happen. Thank you so much for being here, and go do great things.